Now, before I level it, there's two parts of leveling. We want to kind of center it here. And using the lines on the wheel, you should roughly be able to get your chuck fairly on center. You could use a pencil and center it as well. You don't fully go by the chuck. You go by your piece. So I'm not as concerned whether my chuck is level, centered, as my piece. But before we try and center it, we have to level it. Now, sometimes you could use chucks for your pictures as well. You have to see the width if they'll fit in. And if they'll fit in, it can be a lot easier sometimes to trim in a chuck than trying to get the picture, which has a deformed top, center. So you want to take a level. And you should know that when the ball's in the center, that's when it's level. Now you want to check the wheel to make sure your wheel's somewhat just there. So I can put it up here so you can see it. And I just move it till it's in the center. You need to go in both directions. Otherwise, you're probably not going to do that. And that's all assuming that you're pretty, see that? See how nice it is? That's assuming that your cut was even. If you have an awkward cut, it's not going to work. So the first thing I do is try and level it the best I can. Now that I have it leveled, we're good. Now I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to come here just like before. Now we usually move our piece, right? Now we move the chuck. Right? The chuck is now officially part of our piece. So the line almost all the way goes around. Here, here, here's the opening, just a little bit more. So it's not about the chuck being perfectly on center, it's about your piece being perfectly on center.
So you don't need clay when you have the chuck?
No, you need clay. That's the next thing. So, just like normal, we're going to put clay down at the bottom. That's going to hold the chuck from flying off. And we have to do it over here as well. I don't know if that's just a cough or bless you. Now there's two kinds of feet that you can put on it. The first one is like a hidden foot. See how this goes all the way down and hollows out? For you guys, try and keep the same one that you've been using on the pictures and that. If you really want that hidden foot, I'm not gonna, ding you really on that. But it can add some extra weight. That might be flat bottom. You don't want flat bottom. The second one is just like what we have on a regular cup. So if I cut this, it would be a similar shape that we're used to over and over again. So we're gonna use our standard foot. Now, with this, some of the tricks is, and some of the problems is, you can't see the inside anymore, right? That's a huge problem. I have to know what the inside looked like. That's when we threw it. And today's demo, I talked about roughly 4 fingers for the bottom, so I know where my foot's gonna be, and 1/2 inch. So I know how thick it is, so I can put it in the foot. If you guys don't have a reading or don't have an idea, it's very easy to trim through your piece. So we're going to use the round part of our tool. The wheel's going to go quick. I'd like to keep my hand on top. That helps it from launching. And where it's thick, we're going to start removing the clay. And it should come off like shoestrings. I'm going to show you some fun tricks. You may have to trim a little bit and then stop. Sometimes, if you're close to leather hard and you put it out in the sun, the outside will bake a little bit, kind of like a Tootsie Roll where it's softer in the center. So you got to watch out for that. So sometimes I'll trim and then let it dry and come back and trim a little more if I'm rushing it. Nice tight lines. Those lines should be beautiful and tight together. As you come down, you should be using less pressure. Look at the clay come off. You never want to stay in one spot. If you do that, there's a good chance you're going to poke a hole through your piece. You can see the shape starting to come. I'm a touch on the softer side, but I want to give you the demo today, so we'll just deal with it. You will once in a while trim through one of these. It happens. So I'm going to show you both feet. So you can go in both directions, just take your time. Get it nice. So it can come up just straight like that. Usually even if I go straight, I'll take my tool and bevel it in just a little bit, just to give it a little edge that tells me where to stop glazing. And now we're gonna go from center straight out to 3 o'clock. Sometimes you'll notice, even with this, it could move on you. So you do, every so often, want to check your attachments and make sure they're good. Center, straight across to 3 o'clock. And once in a while, it's good, go to the bookstore, get a new trimming tool. Your trimming tools don't last forever. So sometimes they become dull. Students I know over the term have found that sometimes towards the end, switching to the bigger Kemper tool can help because you haven't really used them much and they're sharp. So the tip works just like the one that comes in the kit, the R8. So it's a smaller tool. See how I can take it off like that? So this can be beautiful. On a big piece like that, if I want to take more off, I could use the bigger round and that'll work as well. Just like the flat part of your tool, this will do the same thing. Just covers a bigger surface. So a sharp tool, kind of like knives, always works better than dull tools. And so sometimes you just gotta switch your tool around. This. Now I talked about putting in the foot, right? Make it nice and smooth. Look how pretty that is. I'm going to go back to our round part. I'm going to put in our standard foot. Put it. Come in at an angle and let that foot appear. We've talked about this on so many forms. These should always be rounded. And this edge, that was fine when we made a cylinder, but the inside rounds, this is where a lot of people are leaving white. This is where we don't want to leave white. So you want to take your tool and turn your wrist and cut in. Look at all the clay coming off. It's kind of neat. And let that round in. Now I'm going to show you something kind of neat. Now, a lot of people when they trim bottles, especially in chucks, they get a line here. This is what I was talking about in your work, where you have that line. I tend not to get it. Sometimes you got to switch chucks because I trim in both directions. So not only will I trim in that direction, I'll trim in this direction. I'll usually hold the neck lightly, just like that. See how it just popped on center? And I'll come here and I'll trim down into the form as well. This gets a perfect flow to the piece. And you can go back and forth. Trim some, work on the shape, because you might want to check the weight of your piece. So if it feels real heavy, then you go back and you trim some more. But this allows to get that shape really beautiful and clean. Turn right into the So I had a little bad spot in that back, and I'm going to take it out. Later I'll take a flat piece tool and really clean it up. But you can see how I'm trimming in both directions to get that clean line. So we want that beautiful line throughout the piece. Does everybody understand? So I trim in both directions. I'll trim it upside down Then I'll flip it over and trim it right side up as well. Don't be afraid to let it dry out a little bit. Any questions on the bottle?